The British exit from the European Union strengthens cooperation in informal circles. One of these questionable alliances is now taking measures to decrypt secure communications. The US government is also involved in this process. With Brexit, the UK left the European area of freedom, security and justice. From the EU point of view, the kingdom has become a third country which can still participate in various measures of the Schengen states via a trade and cooperation agreement. However, the government no longer has any co-determination at EU level. However, according to a statement from the British Home Office, the country remains part of the G6 group, in which the interior ministers of the 6 most populous EU member states have been organizing for 18 years. One of the items on the agenda of the most recent meeting at the end of March was the prevention of immigration. Home Secretary Priti Patel presented groundbreaking changes to the British asylum system. By exchanging information, the kingdom's authorities wanted to combat illegal migration across the continent. The G6 is an informal network without any connection to the European Union. According to the federal government in Germany, the first meeting took place in 2003 with the interior ministries from Germany, France, UK, Italy and Spain, at that time still called G5. After joining the EU, Poland has also been participating in the association since 2006. Together, the participating countries represented around half of the EU population. The EU Commission also takes part in the 2-day conferences. The group's chairmanship changes every 6 months. This is currently the responsibility of the UK. The task of the chair include the preparation of upcoming meetings and the definition of the topics to be dealt with there. So it's no surprise what Patel shows there. The original reason for the establishment of the G6 was to influence upcoming legislative projects of the European Union. This is also confirmed by the federal government, which says that the network had the intention of making the decision-making processes in the EU Council of Ministers more efficient through targeted preparation. The Europol police agency, the Frontex border agency, or the Interpol police organization are therefore invited to the conferences if required. With the Lisbon Treaty, the official purpose of the G6 has ceased to be the preparation of the Council since 2009, and from then on there were no more working groups or conclusions. The purpose of the meeting was now the exchange on strategic and fundamental issues. According to the German government, this informal format should enable the free exchange of ideas in a small group. In particular, topics would be dealt with where there is no immediate need for a decision. Since 2007, the US Department of Homeland Security has also been invited in the G6+1 format, and joint EU-US talks usually take place on the second day of the meeting. The federal government cites the conviction that international threats, particularly from terrorism, should be countered through transatlantic cooperation as is the purpose of the US involvement. The upcoming EU-US agreements have therefore been on the agenda in recent years, including the transfer of data on passengers, financial transactions, or foreign fighters identified during military operations. Topics were also the exchange of electronic evidence, for which the European Union is planning an additional agreement with the US government after a separate directive has been adopted. A similar agreement is being negotiated at the level of the Council of Europe, in which not only all EU member states but also the USA are involved. Earlier G6 meetings with the USA were also used to combat cybercrime. The interior ministers of the EU countries and the UK have now again consulted the US government on this. At the virtual meeting 2 weeks ago, according to the UK Home Office, internet disaster was on the agenda. The participants would have dealt with solving problems that arise from end-to-end encryption. The most recent attempt by the EU Commission to force providers of messenger services to cooperate in the fight against sexual abuse and the exploitation of children was probably dealt with. A method proposed by the European Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, would force companies to scan file attachments. The data is compared with hash values from videos or images that are already known to show the sexual abuse of children. The Commission launched a public consultation on this until May. According to the British Home Office, an agreement has now been reached with the USA within the G6 on stronger coordination and a global response. This applies not only to the fight against the sexual exploitation of children, but also to terrorism. The Five Eyes states, USA, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, with Japan and India had already called for state access to end-to-end encryption to a similar extent, citing violent crimes, terrorist propaganda, and attacks as threats. The continued EU cooperation with Great Britain in the G6 framework shows that Brexit will further strengthen informal networks of individual governments. And the UK, for example, remains a member of the Police Working Group on Terrorism, the PWGT, in which state security departments from all EU member states, as well as from Norway, Iceland, and Switzerland, are organized. The PWGT is also an informal association and does not belong to the EU. The British government is likely to rely primarily on closer intelligence cooperation. In addition to the Five Eyes, this probably also applies to the European Berner Club and its counter-terrorism group, the CTG, in which the British domestic service MI5 participates. The CTG is increasingly cooperating with Europol, where the kingdom is also only allowed to participate indirectly after Brexit. The fight against encrypted communication may be one of the first visible successes of this questionable cooperation with the UK. After the informal groups of the G6 and the Five Eyes, the topic will be dealt with next week at the official EU-US meeting of senior officials. Under the agenda item Challenges in Connection with Encryption and Lawful Eavesdropping, the incumbent Slovenian EU presidency presented the Council resolution on decryption that was passed in December under the German presidency. Based on an initiative from 2019, specific agreements could then be made at the EU-US ministerial meeting planned for June. And so there's another topic that is influenced by Brexit, but shows a lot what's going behind closed doors, which we don't get through the everyday official reports from the EU, for example. When you are interested, you get everyday information what the current EU presidency is doing. And if they are working on this, and then the part what they are working on at the moment will be in their press releases. Of course, not the details, and there are also negotiations behind closed doors. But informal meetings are much harder to follow. And so, personally, I have to say this is another downside of Brexit, because a lot will concentrate there now that would have happened in the official meetings. And so we can expect that we will know much less about what's going on than before. And if you still want to stay informed about what we can be informed about, please subscribe to my channel. Auf Wiedersehen.